Hey, I'm really happy you decided to join me again. I've really been looking forward to this, and I hope you have been too. Well, it's time to paint another painting, so let's take a look at what we got on the paper today. I always recommend that you start with a very strong drawing. A very strong drawing. Now, when I say a strong drawing, I don't mean that you have to make it all pretty and gussy it all up and draw it completely perfectly. You just want a nice line drawing to start things off with. To begin, you don't want to overdo it though, otherwise it's going to really show through when you paint, well, your first mark or your first wash or whatever you decide to do when you start painting a watercolor. It's like any other art form. It's all in what you decide you want to do with it. And I think for today we should just go ahead and, I want to get a little bit of my quinacridone magenta while I'm getting things going here. All the names of the colors are going to go across the screen for you. And I want to get a nice mix of my phthalo blue and my quinacridone magenta. Okay? So, what I'm looking for is a little bit of a middle blue color. I don't want it to be too violet. I want it to have a little bit more phthalo blue than quinacridone magenta, honestly. Okay, and what we can do, what I think I might try doing is using this mop brush that we got here. Okay, this mop brush might be a good way to go ahead and get things going. Okay, we haven't really used the mop brush before. We haven't used it a lot in here. So this would be a good time to show you guys, show you at home what we can do with it. All right, let's go ahead and just wet this guy. Now I'm using 140-pound paper, and I'm using a watercolor block. What a watercolor block is that it's a pad of watercolor paper that you can peel the paper off when you're finished with the painting. And the pad acts as a sort of restraint for the paper. It's not a super tough restraint, so you don't want to do lots and lots of heavy washes, but it's a lot more convenient than stretching the paper. If you don't want to use a pad, but you want to use just sheets of watercolor paper, I recommend 300-pound paper. It's not a paper that everybody likes, but it's a paper that I like. Okay, we can go ahead and just, yeah, there we go. Look at all that watercolor getting all up in there. Whew. Whew. Boy. Yeah, we're encountering something or another when, okay, we want to, oh, that's a little drip waiting to happen. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. There it goes. All right. And you know what we can do? Okay. Let's go ahead and just, all right. And then we can go ahead and just lift a little bit of that. There we go. And then maybe we'll go over here and lift. Well, we won't lift, but we'll just lay down some more paint. That was a little too much paint, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. It was up there. Okay, we're going to have kind of a light sky today, so just dab it. And when you get your tissue paper out, I'm using just toilet paper from a roll of cheap industrial grade toilet paper. Go just bunch it up and dab in it. That way it looks much more like clouds when you finally get done with it. And always make sure that near the corner at the top of the paper that the color is a little darker than the color near the object in the foreground. That way it looks like things are, well, coming forward. It's just a way to build up depth and perspective. Think of it as aerial perspective. This little stuff here is off in the distance, whereas the stuff up here is closer to us, so therefore it's going to have a lot more color in it. Whereas the stuff in the distance is going to be kind of the same color, but it's also going to have all kinds of particles and mist and things that are blocking the light, so it'll be really hard to see. Okay, so let's go ahead now, and I think I want to, you know what I want to do? There's going to be a lot of not Prussian blue, I'm thinking of a different color. There's going to be a lot of phthalo blue. There's going to be a lot of ultramarine in this painting because there's going to be all kinds of different textures, and I'm kind of excited to see what kind of way this is going to go. Now, you know that one of my favorite mixes is the quinacridone magenta and the nickel azo yellow and the ultramarine. I use a lot of that color because those three, when you mix them together, they create all kinds of great things. But you can get some really nice stuff from the phthalo blue instead of the ultramarine too. Just need to clean off my palette here for a second because we're about to mix some greens. one of the plus sides of using the 140-pound paper is that when you use it, it tends to dry very quickly. So, you know, that is a mark in its favor for sure. Okay, let's get ourselves some Nicolazo yellow and phthalo blue. Okay, and we want something that's kind of a yellowish green, kind of a middle green. Yeah, make it a little yellowish, but ever so slightly toward middle green there. Okay, there it goes. There we go. Now we're just going to paint this little round of moss up here that's kind of covering all this stuff up here. This is kind of an intense color right off the bat, I know. We can go ahead and, you know, what we can do? You know what we can do? We can just take a little bit off with our tissue paper, our roll of toilet paper. I keep calling it tissue paper, but let's be real here. It's just toilet paper. You can find it at any Home Depot. It's the cheap stuff they put in your workplace because they don't want to spend money on the good stuff. No, unless you work someplace particularly nice, maybe. But generally, no, they don't put the nice stuff in the restroom. They leave you high and dry in there. This is the stuff that when you make a pass, it really tears up and just ruins your whole day. Well, that was my revenge. I'm getting revenge on this paper right here. Okay, now since we got all this stuff over here and these bricks here, let's go ahead and, you know what I want to do? I want to get like a real dull color, but I want to get lots of ultramarine in this. I want to get lots of ultramarine. We're going to use our magic mix, my triad mix here of the Nicolazo yellow with the quinacridone magenta, and then add that ultramarine in. And you'll notice that as you mix colors, the color is going to start shifting toward green as soon as you add the quinacridone magenta and the Nicolazo yellow. So you got to lean into the Nicolazo yellow a little bit. You got to lean into it a little bit. And we got to make things a little bit more violet, don't we? Yeah, a little bit more violet. Okay. Oh, you'd be surprised at the violets you can get with quinacridone magenta and ultramarine. Ooh, they get such good violets. You gotta be careful though, because a lot of times these violets, because Nicolazo yellow in there, the colors try to shift back towards green. The more you add that ultramarine color. Yeah. It's one of those funny little things about color mixing where every time you try to do something, color's got other ideas. Okay. Alright, you know what I'm going to do? Yeah, just a little bit more of that color. Alright. I'm going to add a lot of white now. Or not a lot of white, but a lot of water. I think of the water as my white when I'm painting in watercolors like this. It makes it a lot easier to imagine everything. And I guess in watercolor, the water is kind of a white, huh? Yeah, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit, because the white of the paper is really what functions as the white in this. Okay, let's get out our flat brush. I like to use the flat brush as a sort of water brush, you know, just to lay down water and stuff. And one of the great things, one of the great trials and tribulations of watercolor, as I like to call it, is, boy, we got to try to control our water a little bit, which of course is easier said than done, because watercolor can be a very tricky medium, and your paper can tend to be very absorbent. This particular paper is pretty absorbent. Yeah, it is. And there's going to be some lovely, lovely greens that are kind of over here, attaching themselves to the edges of stuff. So be real careful how you paint things. Be real careful. Now, we want to keep things as simple as possible. So we don't want to, go ham on here, imagining where everything's going to be. No, we don't want to go ham. The only thing we're going to go ham on is getting that color in. We're going to hammer it in, then we're going to try to move on. But you know me, I like to fuss sometimes. You really shouldn't fuss, but God, I can't help myself. It's one of my biggest flaws is I like to fuss with things too much. Be a little fuss budget with these things. But you want to try to just get that water in, and you want to get that color in, okay? Now, what we're going to do, okay, we're getting a lot of water on there, so we want to maybe ease up on that a little bit. Just find all the areas, avoid the foliage, all right? then after you got all that, you might want to dab things a little bit. Okay. All right. Now remember, this is going to be real light. It's going to be real light. All right. So right in here. Okay. So be real quick how you do this. All right. Now you can already see that there's a little bit of texture to this color right here. And that texture is courtesy of the ultramarine. The ultramarine is a color that we use when we want to add texture to a piece because it's a granulating color. Now, I bet you already knew that if you've been with me before. If you've never been with me before, then maybe this is new to you. But that's why we use the ultramarine like we do. It's because we want that texture. Now, if you're getting a rough kind of brush stroke to what you're doing, it's because you're dry stroking, or well, you're dry brushing, dry stroking. It's the same concept, really. You're dry brushing a little bit. Okay. Now, it's important to be quick here. Important to be quick. All right. One of the important things about watercolor is that context really matters. So the color that you put down, you might think it's really dark, but it also might dry a little lighter than you think it would. All right. Like I say here, we want to avoid all these little nooks and crannies and stuff where we think this stuff is going to be, or the foliage. Okay. There's a little pipe right there. I don't know if you knew that, but there is one. Okay. Look at us go. Look at us go. We're getting in between all the stuff that we need to paint. If you accidentally go over something a little bit, don't worry about too much. As long as you didn't overdo it, okay? As long as you didn't overdo it too much, we're all right. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. Stay calm. Stay frosty. All right. Okay. Let's go in here, and we're gonna kind of just get all this stuff up here. Okay. I think we got a little time. We got a little time, but we don't have much time. It's watercolor, so you gotta move. Tear yourself off some tissue paper. Go up here. And we'll lift some of the stuff. Now, it's good that if you have toilet paper that's a little bit not so textured. But if you have a little bit of texture on here from what you're doing, it's okay. Because these are bricks. These are bricks. So it'll add a little suggestion of texture, and that's just fine. Okay? Now look at that. That's about the color that we're looking for. Alright? Yeah, that's pretty much the color that we needed. Alright. Looking spiffy. Looking spiffy. Now let's start thinking about the next color that we want to do. We need a couple of colors in here that are a little bit more, well, I won't say vibrant, but we need something that's going to, I don't know, do I want to fool around with some of this stuff quite yet? I don't know. Let's go ahead and brush in some of the bigger stuff first. Let's go in with maybe a little bit of the yellow. Yeah, we'll just get some of that nickel azo yellow right here. Okay. And we'll go in. And we want to keep this light. We want to keep this light. Okay. Yeah. We want it to be very yellow, but we want to keep it light. So we'll add some of the quinacridone magenta in here and keep this a very dull color. All right. And let's get our brush back out, our flat brush, and we'll go up here and we'll get the top of this. Feel that. Feel the edge of this. And if it feels cool, you're okay. Well, actually, if it feels cool, that means it's still a little bit wet. My bad. I'm giving you bad advice right there. Don't listen to me. Reject that. Okay. If it feels bone dry, or if it doesn't feel like anything, that means it's dry. I guess you could describe it as maybe warm to the touch, but I don't know if warm to the touch is necessarily the way to describe it. But it's one way to think of it. Maybe you think it feels warm to the touch. I don't know. Okay, let's go in here and let's just paint this little section right here. All right, with the nickel azo yellow and the quinacridone magenta. All right. And we got that. We got that. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. And take a little bit off there, okay? That's good. That's good. That's really all I wanted to leave there. That's about all there is to that. And that'll dry really, really quickly. So quickly that we can move on to our next color with a little bit more of the quinacridone magenta in our mix of ultramarine blue and nickel azo yellow, quinacridone magenta, okay? And this one's going to have a lot more magenta in it, but it's also going to have some of the nickel azo yellow. So less of the ultramarine blue, but really heavy on the quinacridone magenta, okay? Yeah, that's how we're going to do it. I have a feeling this is going to be a nice color. We want this to be fairly reddish, but we want it to have kind of an orange sort of hue. Yeah, a little bit of an orange hue to it. There we go. Alright. Now again, there's going to be lots of vines on here. There's going to be lots of vines over here too. But we don't have to pay too much attention to them right now. What we want to do, well, let me check and make sure I'm using the right brush. I am. Sometimes I just look at my flat brushes and I can tell which one is which by which one has less paint on the handle. Yeah, sometimes the paint chips off your handles over time. That's just something that happens with a lot of use. So if it happens to you, don't let it bother you. It just means you're giving them lots of love. Those are the brushes that feel like they've been loved the most. You could also think of them as battle scars. Imagine your brushes as little soldiers that go into war. They put on their combat boots and their helmets, and they grr at you, and they're like, "What do we got? What do we got next, boss?" And you look at them and say, "Well, gonna paint us some good washes now." And they say, "Yeah, washes, washes." They're acting all macho, even though they're just going out to paint watercolors and stuff. I mean, imagine a tough guy going out and painting watercolors. Yeah, tough guy stuff right there. Okay. Well, this is where the real bravery tests are, is when we go in between all these nooks and crannies and try not to screw up all of our drawing. Now, you're going to have you might have lots of flowers and foliage and things that are all planned out here. And you want to try to keep them intact the best you can. In fact, if you really want to, you can paint them first. It's up to you, but obviously I'm not doing that right now. I'm going to paint them probably second, to be perfectly honest with you. Okay. Alright, now I think I've got all the areas that I really need to. By the time we're done, we're not going to see that little streak that got on that part of the painting right there. Okay? Oh boy, this top of the painting is already looking a little dry. Yeah, that happens sometimes. It's hard to get enough water on a really absorbent piece of paper. 300-pound paper tends to cooperate a lot better with this sort of technique. But we've got time. We've got time to do whatever we need to do. Don't let it discourage you if things aren't going perfectly right. Just have fun with it. Because maybe, remember that colors, they're jokers. They think that they think they know what they're doing, even though they ain't got a clue. They think they know everything. All these paints and these little tools, all your tools are working together against you. I don't know if you knew that, but they're scheming. They've got plots, and it's all to get you to trip up. They think it's funny. Yeah, they think it's hilarious. I don't know why they are that way, but they are. Alright, now be very quick about putting all this stuff down here, okay? And remember, we're going to lift this in a second. We're going to lift this, okay? There it goes. And part of the joy of using staining colors like we do here is that lifting all the stuff that we do is a lot easier. It is. Okay. Look at how much we just did. Look at how much we just did. Okay. Now get out. Get out the paper. Get out a little stream of the teepee. Okay. And now we'll just dab away at this a little bit. And see, a lot of that is still wet. It even leaves a nice little ridge at the top. which is kind of really nice. All right. Yeah, if you get a lot of texture on here, don't let it bother you too much. There you go. Don't let it bother you if there's a lot of texture on here, because again, these are bricks, so there should be a fair amount of texture on there. Okay. It looks like we had ourselves a nice little spill there, didn't we? Yeah, I guess we did. Here, can we do anything with that? Oh no, got ourselves a nice little stain there. That's okay. We'll just move on. Okay. Now what I want to do, I want to get my nickel azo yellow and a little bit of phthalo green on this. Phthalo green. This is a very strong color, phthalo green, so you got to be careful with it. And feel your paper. If it feels too cool over here, that means it's not ready to be painted on yet. So maybe you want to do the foliage over on this side. Maybe you do. I don't know. Why don't we go over here and test out how this green looks, huh? We'll just go over here and paint this. There it goes. Now this isn't going to be the final color. We're going to throw a couple of things on top of this. This is really, this is what you call a bit much at the moment. But sometimes we want colors that are a bit much to start out with before we take them down a notch. Okay. You know, maybe you got some things creeping up in there and you'll go ahead and take them down. And we'll cover this little section too, because we got some stuff over there. Look at that. Look at that. Okay. Alright. Alrighty. Now, yeah, a lot of this stuff is not ready to be painted on yet. That's okay. That's okay. Now I think we'll go ahead and let that dry right there, and we'll think about what's over here. Can we paint on that yet? I think we can. Doesn't take long for these little things in the paper here to dry. Doesn't take long at all. I want a lot more nickel azo yellow on this than I do my phthalo green. Okay. Phthalo green is kind of a middle green color. All right, there it is. And, you know, we'll just find all the little spots out here where all those greens are living. And we'll throw them down. Like, okay. One of the joys of painting watercolor is painting wet and wet. And what wet and wet means is that you wet the paper first, and then you put the color down. It's one of those things that's so watercolory. I don't know if that's a word, but it is now, right? Yeah. Okay. Look at that. That's all there is to that one. If you want, you can go ahead and even throw a little bit more yellow in there. I don't know. There. All these little spots over here, and yep, there it goes. Okay. Maybe if you want, you can take off a little bit of the edge over here. One of the nice things about nickel azo yellow is that when you take off a little bit of it, it gets a little brighter. That's right. Because when nickel azo yellow is more concentrated, it has more of an earthy yellow type color, or say like an ochreish type color. If you don't know what ochre is a kind of a yellowish brown color. It looks very much like sand and other kinds of dirt that look a lot more like yellow. It either looks more ochreish or more raw sienna. There's two types of earth colors that artists use a lot. One is yellow ochre, the other one's raw sienna. Okay. Yeah, some of these, we can take the edge off of that. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Now if you look over here, this is pretty close to what the color is going to dry to, so obviously it's not going to be super bright. It's not going to be super bright, but that's okay. That's pretty much what we were going for. All right, let's take a look now. Let's go ahead and, I don't know. Let me go ahead and clean off a little bit of the color that we used from the previous episode. Okay, we got that cleaned off. Now, what do you say we take some, I know what I want to do. Let's take a lot of phthalo blue here and get this over here, because we got some fun stuff to do with phthalo blue. Let's take some of that quinacridone magenta color. Just add a little bit of it. Okay. In my bucket over here, I've got a couple of wells that I use to clean my brushes off. And then I've got one well, because it's got 3 wells in it. I got one well that I use just for painting. So 2 wells to clean the brush off, because I like to clean the brush off in one, give it another good rinse in the other, and then go on and paint some more stuff using the water that's in the clean well. Okay. And what I got here is a blue that I think is going to be very light. Very light. There it goes. And it's going to be a nice light blue right there. Okay. And this one's going to go right here. It's be kind of a middle blue color. It's a little bit like the color that we used up in the sky, which would make sense because obviously the windows are reflecting light, right? Yeah, they kind of are. So it would make a lot of sense to have them like that. Okay, let's get a little bit of the quinacridone magenta and the nickel azo yellow here. Get a little bit more magenta on this, and then we'll mix some of the phthalo blue in there. Ooh, phthalo blue is really strong. Really strong. Ooh, boy. That was a little too much. Okay. And we're looking for a brown color in here. Yeah. That's about the brown color we were looking for right here. Alright. And then it's going to go right there too. Okay. Nice. Nice. Now we just want to touch that phthalo color in here. Alright. Since that's starting to beat up a little bit, we can go ahead and take some of that edge off. Alright. One of the things about painting like this is that it's a little unusual to have the pad completely turned upright like this. It's very strange, actually. So you got to be careful when you paint like this, because, well, obviously, you probably have noticed a lot of the time what will happen is you'll get a lot of drips going because obviously the paper's upright. Whereas normally you probably have the paper very close to flat, maybe not completely flat. It depends how you want to paint a picture. Okay, really depends on you. Okay, let's get out the liner brush for this one because we got some tough stuff to go on here. All right, let's get a little bit down here. Get a little bit right there. We got the liner brush here for all the little fine details and stuff. And we're getting to the point where we're going to start getting into some fine details soon. Yeah, we're getting to that point. Luckily, we're not there yet. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and take some of this right up in here. Well, I guess I was fibbing about not being at that point yet. Very clearly, we are at that point. Okay. We got that in there. That looks nice. Okay. Oh, boy. So let's go ahead now and maybe we'll add a few things. We'll get maybe a little bit more of the yellow. Okay. And a little bit more of the blue. Just get a dark green color in here. Okay. And we'll kind of just put this wherever on the underside, because it doesn't need to be like real super defined or anything. It just needs to go in the right place to say, hey, there's some dark stuff here. Hey, this is where the shadow is on this. And that's the way it is. It's proud to be a shadow color. There it goes. Perfect. And maybe one over here. Look at that. Look how easy that was. In fact, we can go ahead and maybe just create a little fun thing right over there. Yeah, that's all there is to it. Okay. Okay. Man, we're getting really far along now, aren't we? You know what we could do? Well, we could start creating some washes over here on all that. But I kind of want to finish like the middle ground here. So let's go ahead now. I think what I want to do, is I'm going to take my, you know what, I'm going to take my other brush, my other flat brush, because I'm having an idea right now, and I'm not sure if it's going to work. I'm going to get my flat brush wet, the one that I haven't been using. It's going to be damp here. I'm going to separate these bristles a little bit, okay? And then I'm going to go into this paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the brush so that it goes this way. And I'm going to use my left hand for this one because it's a little easier for me to access. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe it in the perspective direction that I have this building going. I don't want to wipe it in a completely different direction or else it's going to look terrible. So we're going to go like right here and just like that. Okay. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to split these up. Okay. There it goes. Okay. And while we go, we're going to wipe these down a little bit. Just take a little bit off the edges there. Okay. And maybe right here. Okay. Now we'll take a little bit off that edge. And we're just creating some of this texture here that we got on these bricks, you know. Maybe. If it's not perfect, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. What we're going to do is we're going to go with the flat brush a little later, and we're going to create a few more things. And maybe you just want to take a few of the bristles while they're spread out like this, and okay, create texture like that, and maybe like that. We're just suggesting things. We want to make things very simple. Actually, down here they're going to be a little bit more. They're going to be a little bit more in this direction because the perspective changes. All right. So keep that in mind while you do this. And then, okay. If it's not perfect, don't worry, because bricks aren't, really perfect things. A lot of times they don't get perfectly set. Okay. So if you mess it up a little bit, don't freak out too much. Just try to get it in the general direction. Yeah, that's how you do it. Now, the reason I'm doing it like this is because this brush is made with synthetic hairs, and synthetic hairs don't work really well for this type of thing, all right? Natural hairs are a little better. Natural hairs are a little better for getting this kind of technique down, okay? That's really all we have to do, because there's going to be a lot of vines to paint still, so we don't have to overdo it, okay? And that actually doesn't look that bad. I actually like the way that looks. Oh, it's just one of those pleasant little surprises. I love it. I love it so much. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead with our... Ooh, let's get some of this... You know what? I need to get my big brush out. Or, not the big brush, but a bigger brush. Because what I want to do now, I want to get kind of a violet-ish color going. Alright. Touch a little bit of that quinacridone magenta right there. Get a little bit of the blue. Alright. Now, actually, I want to get a lot more blue on that. still using a lot of that mix that we made. Okay. Alright. There it goes. Now right up in here. Okay. Swipe it right down there. And we'll get this little ridge right here. And this one right here. Okay. That's all there is to that. Very good. Very good. Alright. Let's do this other one. Like I said, I want to show you how to keep things simple and not freak yourself out. Because maybe you haven't painted watercolors before, and you know, it can be very difficult if you've never done it before. I know how it is. It's very stressful. There's no reason to get yourself all freaked out. It's actually really easy. Okay? And we can go ahead in here now, and we can just get all these little bits right here. If I had a tiny flat brush, I'd probably like to do that because, you know, tiny little flat brushes are great for getting geometric stuff. I think one of the brushes I need most is a flat brush made with natural hairs. And that'll make it a lot easier to paint some of these things that I show you. Okay? Look at what we're doing right now. Look at what we're doing. Okay? And we can go in here and paint this little window right here. And maybe we want to get a little bit of a darker color going. Ooh, I don't know. Is this going to work? Is this going to work? Oh, it's going to work. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Oh, here it goes. Okay. Oh yeah, look at that dark violet color. That's just the Nicolazo yellow with a little bit of the ultramarine blue. Sometimes you can fudge things a little bit because there isn't a ton of granulation in ultramarine blue. Well, what I've noticed is that when you fudge the yeah, I know, fudge. When you fudge the pigment texture and the color happens to lean toward a little bit toward a red or an orange or a yellow, you don't see as much of the texture from the ultramarine. So it all works out. Okay. Alright, there's this little bit right here. That's looking nice. That's looking nice. And we can just give that a little dabby-do right there. And this color is going to be pretty much the same, I think. So we can go up here. And you know what? It might be a little easier. It might be a little easier to do this. Okay. It's a little easier to squeeze that one off without screwing it up when you use the flat brush. And then you might want to switch to another brush just to wrap things up over here. Ooh, is that still wet? Is that still wet? Ooh, that's still wet. You gotta be careful with that one. Yeah, let's just leave that alone for right now. I didn't know that blue was still wet. Okay. Oh boy. Have mercy. Whew. Okay, let's get a little bit more blue in here. Alright. A lot of blue. Just a touch of that quinacridone. There it goes. And that's the great thing about this mix right here is you can shift it toward whatever you want. You can shift it toward whatever you want. And what do I want to do here? Do I want a brown? Yeah, I think I want a brown. Alright, so there it goes right there. Okay. And now we can get some details right in there. We could actually go ahead and use the liner brush for some of this stuff, because some of this stuff is getting a little too hairy even for my taste. And you know me, I like taking risks. But even I know when it's a fool's game. There. Looking good, champ. There. Okay. That's why we're doing this. Some of this looks a little messy, but you know, that's just the way it works. Okay, let's get the details on this bad boy right here. Okay, we'll go down here too. And we'll go down below. This is just some straight up dry brushing is what this is. Ooh boy. Okay. Alright. Imagine you're kind of like inking a comic book sometimes, because on some things you'll see kind of a shadow on both sides, and those are usually like cylinder type things when that happens. Okay, so you see one on both sides, but maybe you'll see a heavier shadow, like there'll be a little bit of a shadow right here, but then it'll be a dark one down below, and then there'll be a dark one down below here. You know how comic books do when they have shadows and stuff. They use a black line on both sides of the object, but on the shadow side they use a heavier line. A little interesting fact right there. Okay, let's look at what else we gotta do. Ooh, I know. We gotta paint a red here. Well, there's a little figure right here inside this door. It's one of these weird things where I was walking around in a town, up north around here, and I stopped and looked down this alley in between a couple of shops, and they had this bizarre looking thing at their back door where it was just kind of peeking through. Wasn't really doing anything. It just looked like someone took that dummy from that movie Saw. It's a lousy horror movie if you've never seen it before. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it, but if you're into that horror stuff, you might want to check it out. Warning though, it's real gross. I watched those movies with an ex of mine, or at least one of them. We went to see one of those movies when I was in theaters. Oof. It's brutal. It's a rough movie to get through. I won't kid you on that one. Okay, let's take a look at this now. Let's get this. Yeah, there it is. There's that red color. Oh, yeah. We're just using Pyrrole and quinacridone magenta for that red color. Because it turns out, if you mix those two colors together, you can mix red. I bet you didn't know that, did you? Well, you do now. Believe me, you can mix red. It's one of the craziest things I ever discovered in art. Because I was told all throughout school, you can't mix red. You can't mix red. It's a primary color. You can't mix it. Yeah, well, maybe you couldn't 150 years ago, but in the year of our Lord 2020, that's not quite the case anymore. You can mix red now. Boy, it won't be long before we can mix a color like yellow. Won't that be wild? Yeah, they tell you can't mix certain colors, but really it just depends on what you have available. If you have a bunch of suitably bright colors available, you can mix all kinds of stuff. It's one of those funny things. Alright, now, oh boy, we've really made some progress, haven't we? What we can start thinking about is maybe some of the lines in here. I'm still waiting for a few things to dry though, so let's just go ahead with our liner brush, and maybe we can complete one of these things in here. Maybe we'll do the light post over there, huh? Yeah, maybe we'll do the light post. Yeah, maybe we'll do the light post, and that'll really wrap that one up right here. Okay. Now, usually I don't recommend remixing colors like this, but sometimes you have extenuating circumstances, like, oh, that color was still wet. Okay. And we'll just lighten that up a little bit, and maybe we'll put a little bit of a hint of something right there. Okay. There. we'll just suggest some stuff all the way down. Again, if the color that you have is suitably toward red or orange or the warm side of the color wheel, you're not going to see a lot of the ultramarine texture. You're not going to see a lot of it, unfortunately. Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to get more of that violet color with the quinacridone magenta and the ultramarine, and then I want to add that nickel acid yellow, and I want kind of a violet-y sort of brown color. It's like it's violet-y, but not too violet-y. All right. I think I've got something to work with right here. Here. Here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna paint a bunch of all this, and these are kind of just gonna go all over the place. All right. So we're just gonna paint a bunch of these vines because maybe someone isn't taking care of this place. Maybe, the guy who owns it just doesn't care that much, and he's just letting everything look all shabby and all that, and he's like, hey, no one's looking at the side of the building over there. They're coming inside the shop. They're only looking at the front until someone decides to go sit on a park bench because, the town's put a little money into this place and they want to make it look pretty. And they want people to come and feel comfortable because this place has some nice architecture where people are allowed to come and sit down, take a load off if they're walking or they're eating ice cream and stuff like that, because there's ice cream shops around here. Go grab yourself an ice cream cone and sit down on one of the fine benches all around. Yep. And then you sit down and you see this, and you see a creepy little puppet in the window. He's telling you, go shop. If you walk close enough, he offers you a $5 off coupon. It's an animatronic. Did you know that? I bet you didn't. I bet you didn't know that, did you? Yeah, what do you do now? All kinds of wild things at these shops. Really gotta pump the gas to sell some sweaters. Oh yeah, you just let these vines go every which way. Because, vines just kind of crawl all over the place. And maybe they got kind of this direction where they're climbing up. And this is one of those things where, they're climbing up. And they're getting all over things, and they're starting to get all up in the window too. Yeah, that's something there. They're getting all up in the window like that, man. Someone's really got to come clean these things off. Okay, what you can do while you're brushing like this is if you reach the light side of an object, you can go over onto the other side here, and not necessarily like paint. Maybe you can paint over it, maybe create a little ridge like this. Make it look like the vines are crawling over it, but you can also bunch them up on the other side to make the object stick out a little bit more. Like the object, this light post here isn't going to be sticking out a lot, but it's going to be sticking out a little. Okay? And you got little vines down here, and they're going every which way. I really recommend a liner brush for this type of action, and really grip the end of your brush like this to keep it all loosey-goosey and free. You don't want to choke up on the brush. When I say choke up, I mean like you go up and you grab the ferrule like that and you're making all kinds of lines like that. No. We want to keep this loosey-goosey and free. Just throw your shoulders around and say loosey-goosey. That little puppet over there in the window, he's going to look at you like you're crazy, but he's the one that was in a bunch of horror movies, so maybe he shouldn't be one to judge him. That's right. Don't you let him forget it. Give it a little thing. Yeah, we can just go nuts all over the place. We can take this wherever. And just decide where you want to stop, because maybe you get tired of painting a bunch of vines all over here, and you don't want to cover everything up, do you? Maybe not. Or maybe you made a lot of mistakes and maybe you want to cover up a lot of stuff. This is one of those opportunities where you can really take a little bit of artistic license and cover up a few of your flubs. Oh boy, Lord knows we have a few of those, don't we? Yeah, we sure do. Okay, let's go over here. Okay. Yeah, maybe there's one right in here. Alright, that's about good. Okay. You know what I might do? I might take a little bit of yellow on this. Mix it with that. And we'll just create a little bit of a glaze right there. Near the bottom like that, just to really accentuate the ill repair. There it goes. That's not that bad. That's not that bad, is it? No. You know what else we could do? We could also go into our flat brush here, and we might get a little bit more of that kind of dull gray color, that gray violet, by using the ultramarine and the quinacridone magenta and nickel azo yellow. And then we might we'll just follow the lines. Yeah. That's all we'll do. We'll follow the lines. And maybe right here. And okay. You don't have to get too crazy with it. All right. And maybe over here. And over here. Just to suggest some things. Just suggest it. Just suggest it. There it goes. Okay. My bricks are a little jacked up, I know. Well, that's what I get for painting them quick. All right. We got that brickwork suggested. We're in a good place now, aren't we? Oh yeah, we are. Gotta say, I'm feeling good. Are you feeling good? I hope you are. Because ready or not, here I come. Alright. Go in here with our quinacridone magenta and our nickel azo yellow. And a little bit of that ultramarine. And we'll paint some of these dark things in here. Some of these dark things. Just to give it a little oomph on the side of the roof here. Okay. There it goes. You can also paint this with a flat brush. Yeah, you can also paint this with a flat brush. I'm just painting with the liner brush just cause. Okay. There it goes. And we could also take this over here too. Alright. That's really making that stand out, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Gotta say, that's not bad at all. I'm kind of pleased with the way this is turning out so far. Let's go ahead and use our imagination at this point. Let's take our little round. It's not really a little round, but it's little enough. And we'll take a little bit of that, and we'll take a little bit of the quinacridone magenta on this one. Actually, you know what I want to do? Let's just clean off this brush entirely and just get some quinacridone magenta and ultramarine on that. There it goes. A little bit more of the magenta on there, because we want this to be a little bit more violet, and we'll just take some of that color that we mixed up with the nickel azo yellow earlier. Okay. And right here. Like that. Okay. Now, that is about how dark I want them right there. That is perfect. I cannot complain any further. But I will complain a little bit. Okay. Oh, all these silly jokes. You tired of me yet? Sometimes I get tired of myself. Okay. What I want is a little bit of a... Well, I want kind of a dull orange color, alright? Yeah, that's all I'm really looking for. That's all I'm really looking for, is kind of a dull orange color. And I think I've got it. This is going to look a lot more vibrant than it actually is. Especially after I add all the especially after I do this. You know what we're doing. Okay. Donezo. Excuse me. Just one of those days where I had to sneeze. I apologize for that one. Didn't see that coming. Well, I guess I saw it coming, but I couldn't stop it. Oh well. What can I say? I'm only human. I'm only human. I know it seems like I'm some sort of beast. Just painting. You know, it takes a lot of know-how to do a thing like this. Believe you me. Okay. Now we want to keep it very light around the edge here. Alright. This is just quinacridone magenta, a little phthalo blue. It's very light. You'd be surprised how often you can get away with just using a couple of colors in a mix, but when they're put on very lightly, boy, they look like they could be any kind of neutral. A lot of people don't know that. You can get away with that kind of thing. But remember, you can do it. And look at the result. Look at the result right there. That looks absolutely gorgeous. When we're done with it, it's going to look a little whiter because there's going to be a color in the frame right there that we're going to use very shortly. Okay? And we're just going to reach back into that ultramarine with the quinacridone magenta and the nickel azure yellow. Okay? That's all there is to that. You know what other color we could use to make this sort of thing? We could also use a little bit of the pyrrole orange. We haven't seen a lot of the pyrrole orange this time around, have we? No, we haven't. I gotta remember that. We can use that color for all kinds of things. Because you've seen it before, if you joined me before. You've seen how pyrrole orange can really change a painting. In the best way. You know, you see her change a painting and you think, oh boy, what's he talking about now? I don't mean anything bad. I just mean that it adds a lot. It really does. Okay. Let's go ahead now. Take away some of that frame right there. Alright. And now maybe what we can do, because we've done enough work right now, what we'll do is we'll take some of the ultramarine and the pyrrole orange, because we haven't seen a lot of those two together, but they make just a gorgeous kind of dull purple. And it's a really good color, really good combo to put together for this sort of thing. We'll use a lot of ultramarine on this, a lot more ultramarine than pyrrole. Okay, keep it dark, keep it very dark. Okay, and we'll go right to the top here. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, just like that. And go to the next wood slat. Put that in. Next wood slat. Put it in. Okay. And we'll put it in right here too. Okay. Okay. And we'll put in the others. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. There. You see? You see what happens when we stick with it and we see it through to the end. The most wonderful things happen. Just like that. Just like that. Okay. Alright. We can even, I really recommend dry brushing on this one because it adds that much more texture to your painting. There's a couple of different ways you can add texture to a painting, but the two best ways are to use a color that granulates, or it has some other kind of texture, like it's really powdery, or else it clumps together, or something like that. Or else you can use a dry brush, or you can use any other tools like a piece of textured paper, like some brands of paper towels or toilet papers. Yeah, be careful with those, because if you wanted to add just like a smooth texture like up in the sky, and you don't want to add a bunch of, you know, the pattern that you see in the paper, you might be in trouble. Okay. Yeah, look at this, man. Look at this. Isn't that gorgeous? Here, we'll add a little dark up here because we'll pretend that this is kind of embedded into the wall. There. There it goes. That's nice. That's nice. Okay. And we'll just give it a little line down here. Okay. Perfect. Alright, now let's start thinking about what we want to do with our sponge now. Because there's going to be a lot of stuff in here, and I really recommend breaking off a piece of sponge when you do this sort of thing, because you know you don't want to use a big old hunk of sponge. Sometimes I've been hesitant to tear off pieces of sponge, but you know, these are natural sponges that we use. They're not that expensive. They're really not that expensive. So go ahead and tear you off a piece. Now we're going to use a little bit of the phthalo blue and nickel yellow here. Phthalo blue and nickel yellow. Because we don't want that bright of a green right here. Okay? I'm going to use this small side of it. Okay? Small side right here. And then we'll just, what you can do is just touch. Okay? You touch that. And maybe. Here's what we can do. Touch the bottom there. Okay. And then maybe right in there. That looks good. And then, okay. Look at that. And down here, we'll follow that down. Okay. And we'll go down here. Okay. Well, we're not done quite yet, so let's follow through on this. Okay. And right over here. Okay. That's not that bad. That's not bad. It's a quick way to go ahead and get your foliage in right there. It's a quick way to do it. Now let's go ahead and mix up something a little darker, because I have a feeling this is going to be pretty dry by the time we get done mixing this stuff here. Let's add a little bit more. Let's add a little bit more of the quinacridone magenta. Make it kind of a real dark olive color. All right, there it goes. There it goes. All right. And we'll get some more of this color on there. All right, we'll just tear that off. And we'll kind of just guide it through here. There it goes. Just like that. Just like that. Right. At the bottom, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. There it goes. Okay. Turn that around. And then we'll... There it goes. Okay. And follow where you think the shadows are going to be. The shadow is kind of like, the light is kind of coming from this way, right? It's coming from the right. That I've noticed that now. I haven't been paying a lot of attention to it, but it makes sense with all the shadows that we got going on right here. Alright, so that's where our heavy shadows are going to be. They're going to come from the right, or they're going to be on the left, but the light is coming from right there. Okay. Oh, that is just beautiful. Oh, that works so well. That's why I recommend that you tear pieces of your sponge off. Don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to do it, and don't throw these away either. Little pieces like this, they're nice for getting in those little tiny places where you got lots and lots of foliage and whatnot, but you don't want to spend a lot of time painting it. Because I know how it is. I know how it is. It can be a real drag trying to paint some of that stuff. It's real hard too. It's not easy. I know. Just clean off the palette a little bit here. There we go. Alright. We'll just throw this over here. That's good. Okay. Now what I want to do, I want to take that color with the phthalo green and the nickel hazel yellow. Alright. And this color over here is going to be a little bit more intense. It's going to be a little bit more intense. Alright. In fact, what I might do is I might take a little bit more of that middle green color. I take a little bit more of that middle green color. And what we can do is maybe squeeze out some of the pigment that we had in the brush there. And I'm just going to take it and put it in between a couple of pieces of tissue paper there, and then I'm going to have presumably a sponge that's ready to paint again. So there it goes. There. Look how much paint it's got in there. That's about how much paint you want. So what you do to get this completely clean once you're done with it, you dip it in the water, you squeeze it out in the next one, then you put it in between two pieces of tissue paper and just squeeze it dry. Get all the water out of there. And the tissue paper will soak up all the water, and this will be ready to go again, just like it is right now. Okay, here we go. And you just want to give it like little love taps. Remember that foliage tends to do whatever it wants, so that's the kind of vibe you're going for right now. If you find an edge that really works for what you want, you should go ahead and use that. Okay. And there's that one extending over here. There it goes. And maybe this will go, yeah, there it goes. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that curves over there a little bit. That curves over there. Okay. We got that. Okay. And here's these. Here's these. Ooh, that's nice. Ooh, that's nice. Let's go over here. Okay. Now look how nice that turned out. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, I really like that. I really do. Again, soak it and squeeze out the next one. Put it in between a couple of pieces of tissue paper. Squeeze it dry. And then it's going to be ready to paint again. It might be stained with a little bit of color, but it'll be ready. And it'll be good to go. So now what we got to do. I got a few other places here where I see some more foliage I can work with. I think what I want to do is I want to get to that nickel hazel yellow with that phthalo green again. I'm going to make this real yellow. Kind of like we did the first time around there, right? Right. Okay. Yeah, I know. And then we're just going to go over here and we're just going to tap that in. Okay. That's about all there is to that. Look how far along we're getting. Is that amazing? Yeah, it sure is. Well, that dries. Let's go ahead and mix up a brown here that I think will work really well. We already got some of this color that we're using with the ultramarine and the nickel hazel yellow and the quinacridone magenta, that triad mix. I think we should just shorten the name of that to the triad mix that we were using. That might be an easier way to explain it. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. You ready? You ready? Oh, I don't know if I'm ready. Yeah, I am. I'm ready. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. dry brushing a little bit right now, aren't we? Yeah, we are. Maybe at the very top here. The very top. Maybe at the very top. And the edges, maybe we'll have a little bit of a darker color. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's the way we do it. Maybe that's the way we do it. And maybe for this little piece right here, we'll wipe that blue down on the edge. And then we'll remove it almost immediately just to get it the right color there. And look how nice that is. Oh, that turned out so nice. Ooh, we got a lot of color on that sponge. That's the big piece of sponge, not the little piece. I'm going to keep the little piece right over here. Okay. Well, we need a little bit of a black color now, don't we? Well, the quickest way to make a black color is with the pyrrole and the phthalo blue. So get the pyrrole orange, the phthalo blue going, and with enough phthalo blue, you'll get it close to a black color. All right. Just add enough of that pyrrole in there, and you gotta be careful because the phthalo blue tends to be so much stronger than the pyrrole. It really does. It'll overpower you. Yeah, it'll make your life interesting at the very least. Okay, I think we got a color we can use now. So let's just go in here. Very carefully. If it's too dry, you can go ahead and make it a little bit more liquidy. There it goes. There it goes. And now we can paint in between these little bars. Normally in an oil painting, we would kind of just, put the bars in with a palette knife, wouldn't we? Yeah, we would. That's a lot easier. Yeah, welcome to watercolor painting, I say. This is why I tell you, you want to paint watercolors? Oof. Well, here it comes. Alright. That doesn't look too bad. Now his hair here, it's going to be black too, so we can leave a lot of this unpainted. Add just the suggestion of the figure right there. We don't have to, define him completely. No, we don't have to do that. Let me do something right here. I'm gonna take that pyrrole and put it across these little areas right here to really. Okay. And pyrrole stains a lot, so you gotta be careful doing this sort of thing. It's a risky move, but it's a lot of times it can be worth it. A lot of times, not all the time. Okay. Feeling pretty good about this one here. There's that one. Now let's add a little bit of the pyrrole right about here. Here. Try it again. Right about there. Okay. A little bit of dry brushing right there. We're just adding the dry brushing for texture and stuff. Okay. Maybe we'll put a little bit of whatever we can right there. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine the way it is. We don't have to fool around with that too much more. Okay, let's go ahead now and take our sponge back out because we got to do one more thing over here. We've got to get a little bit. You know what we're going to do? You know what we're going to do? we're going to take our phthalo, our nickel azo yellow, phthalo and nickel azo yellow, and I think we're just going to add a little bit of the quinacridone magenta, a little bit, just to dull down our color a little bit. Okay, that's all we need. Okay, now let's go into a couple of places where, yeah, maybe right. We don't want to overdo it. Don't overdo it, because this is going to be very light. This is going to be very light. There it goes. There it goes. You're quite a color, aren't you? There. Oh boy. And we'll go over here too. Just lightly graze it. Lightly graze it. Okay. That's nice. That's nice. Okay. That's about as much as we want to do. Yeah, that's about as much as we want to do. What we can do now is we can, well, you know what I want to do. You know what I want to do. I'm just going to take a little bit of our phthalo color right here and throw this right here. Okay. And while that's drying off, we'll take some of our phthalo green and our nickel azo yellow again. Rinse this color off. Give it another rinse. Smush it. Like that. And it's a new sponge. Okay. There it goes. Look at it go. This is quite a sponge. Okay. Yeah, well, I guess we could go ahead and maybe lift that a little bit. It's not like it's going to be the end of the world if it gets lifted a little bit, because it's a pretty intense color. Phthalo blue stains the paper a little bit. When I say it stains the paper, I mean it really gets into the paper and doesn't come up. That's really all staining means. Like, a lot of the colors that we use are extremely staining. They stain so much that it's sinful. Oh, it really is sometimes. Okay. Let's take our ultramarine, our quinacridone magenta, and the nickel azo yellow. And right about here on this frame. I know I said I was going to use the pyro a little bit more, but yeah, I guess I lied, didn't I? Yeah. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. Okay. Alright, we got that color in there. Now, what we could do, I guess, is maybe we could do a little bit of a lighter version of that color on both sides here. Yeah, we could do that. We could totally do that. And then we'll just go ahead and get this little color right here. We'll call this the little color that could. What this is this is the phthalo green with the nickel azo. And the quinacridone magenta. Okay. That's about all there is to that. We'll leave that alone now. It doesn't need anything else. It's fine the way it is. Okay. So now that we got that cleaned off, got my fingers cleaned off now, let's go ahead and just take a little bit of the quinacridone magenta here all by itself. And then we'll add a couple of little neuters right over here. There it goes. That's all there is to that. Now let's use our imagination now. and get a color that's got a little bit of that quinacridone magenta in there with some of the brown colors and stuff that we've been using. Okay, and now we'll just add a little bit of water to get things going here. All right, so imagine we're painting more vines now, if you can believe it. And like I say, they're kind of just creeping all over the place. Where are they going? I don't know if even they know. They're just searching for a place to rest their weary heads. These vines been climbing for weeks and days on a journey to cover up a window. They're looking for the finest window in town to cover up and close shut, and they live for making humans' lives a little more difficult. Seems like Mother Nature, a few of their creations do that, doesn't it? Yeah, it seems like they live just to inconvenience us a little bit. Sometimes Mother Nature's gotta lean into it and let us remember who's boss. Yeah, it's like that. Okay, we'll go over here and maybe we've got all kinds of vines climbing over there and climbing over here too, and they're climbing this way. Okay, and you mix all kinds of different little colors. The one that I'm using is mostly pretty violet here, but once it covers up a lot of what we've been painting, it looks pretty decent. Okay. And that covers that. And over here, you can use your imagination and decide, well, how many vines do I feel like having? Do I want a lot? Do I want a little? There's probably going to be a lot in here to really compensate. If you really want to compensate for bungling your painting, this is the time to do it. Ooh, this is the time. Yeah. We'll go over here and maybe we'll throw some really heavy stuff right in there. Yeah, that looks good. And over here. Okay. There it goes. Finally. There it goes. Maybe there's one going right up in here. Yeah, why not? It's coming over in this way. You got a little bit more ultramarine in there so it doesn't look too orangish. There it goes. There. Okay. And that's probably about enough. We don't need to do any more, I don't think. I think we got enough in there. Whew. That's good. Let's get a little bit more of this phthalo blue. Let's keep it light. Really, really lighten it up with some water. And we'll go down to this section right here and color it. And actually, we can go ahead and color this whole thing, can't we? Yeah, there's no reason to because it's already that color, you know? Here. There. That looks good. So now, why don't we go ahead and I got an idea for this color right here. I got an idea. Let's use, there's this bush that's got some really long leaves on it. I forget what it's called right now. Sometimes I have a brain fart like that, but that's okay. Don't need to know what it's called, I just need to know how to paint it. And thankfully, that much I remember. There's one thing you want to remember is how to paint it. If you don't remember how to paint it, you're in real trouble. Yeah, that's one of those things. Okay, come on, let's get a little bit. I want this to be more of a middle green color, so we're just going to scrub this in right here. Oh, is it still wet? Is it still wet? Is it still wet? It's a little wet. It's a little wet. So I'll take my paper to that. Alright. Alright, now, this is what I'm going to do right here. Alright. Now, whether or not that was a smart move, like right there, I don't know. That's for you to decide. That's for you to decide. Okay. Here we go. You know what I might do? I might add a little bit of yellow to this. A little bit of yellow. Just right in there. Yeah, I think that's a little better. That's a little better. Now that we've done that, we can take this. Okay. And there we have a plant that's most of the way done, thankfully. Okay. Let's go ahead and, well, let's mix up a color that we need. Let's mix up the color that we need. We'll get the phthalo blue and the nickel, not the phthalo blue, but the phthalo green and the nickel azo yellow. This color is going to be a little bit more of a middle green color. And we'll get the quinacridone magenta in here. There it goes. I want this just to be a little duller. Now, we'll take our painting brush, our flat brush, and we're going to make some pretty bold moves right here. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to work. But, here. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get most of the water off of that. And we're going to split the bristles. We're going to split the bristles just like that. And we're going to get that paint in those bristles. And now we're going to, oh boy. Oh boy. Talk about a bravery test. Alright, let's go ahead and okay, and then right over here. Alright, just like that. And right over here, right over here. A little darker right there. Alright. And then, do we want to make it darker anywhere else? Okay. That's pretty good. Okay. Well, you know what we could do? You know what we could do? We'll just leave it at that. We'll leave it at that and add any touches that we need to with our smaller brushes. That was enough of a bravery test for right now, I think. Ooh, certainly having a lot of those, aren't we? Ooh. Yeah, we are. We're having a few too many of those, I think. Okay, let's take some of this color with the quinacridone magenta and the nickel azo yellow, and we want a color that looks very, just a smidge more reddish. We want it to be a real earthy looking yellow type color. Okay? So, here's what we want to do. We want to take our wash brush, our water brush, all right, and get a little bit more water off of that. Don't want too much water on this one. All right. Now, a good rule of thumb here, a good rule to keep in mind, is that if you can see where the water is, if you can see that the paper's still wet, that means you've got enough water in there. But if the paper's not shiny, that means you might need a little bit more water. Okay? That's really all that means. Alright, so part of this grass is going to be kind of dead grass, and the other part is going to be kind of alive-ish. Yeah, it's going to be alive. Well, let's not beat around the bush here. It's going to be alive. Okay. Okay. Get all this color in here, what we're going to do is, well, you guessed it, we're going to lift it a little bit. It's like one of our big things, isn't it? Yeah, it is. A little bit, a little bit. And we'll go up in here and get all this stuff over in here. Let's take that roll of teepee, fold it over, okay, and by the time we're done patting that down, it should be just about the right hue, okay, just like that, just like that. All right. Now let's go ahead and get our phthalo green, our nickel azo yellow again. And let's make it real yellow. Okay. And we'll wet the paper again. And we'll just this is where we want to try to regulate the water use a little bit. Hopefully that's a little dry by now. If it's not, we're still gonna rock and roll. That's how we're gonna do it. We're playing things fast and loose now, man. I know, it's getting real exciting now. Because we're finally past the middle ground. We finally made it to the foreground. And hopefully the foreground's not going to take us that long. Because the foreground's a lot simpler than the middle ground was. Thank goodness for that. Okay. Alright. Alright, let's go ahead now and just throw this in. Okay. if you ever want to give your elbow a rest, just rest it on the table you're painting on. Remember, you paint your way. You don't have to do it every little way that I show you. Okay. Alright. Now what we can do is take a little bit off to just soften everything, because we don't want everything to be really dark right off the bat. We'll put in some darker colors in a second. Okay, let's take some of this Nickel yellow, and with our ultramarine mix, go into a few places where we think we might want to add a little something. Like maybe, oh, yeah, I don't know. You know what we could do? So we could take our sponge and kind of add a few things here and there. Just accent maybe the edges a little bit. Okay. There it goes. Maybe over here. Okay. Yeah, that looks pretty decent. So we got all those little things accented right now with that kind of beige looking color. Now we can go in with maybe a little bit darker of a color here. Be sure you squeeze out the sponge because you want to get that ready. Okay. Now maybe we'll go in with a little bit more intensified green color here. Add some just pure phthalo green to what we've been using. Maybe a little touch of the Nickel yellow. Okay. Get your sponge ready. And look for the dark areas around here. Maybe they're going to be sneaking in. Yeah. They'll be sneaking in right around there. And maybe right around here and over here a little bit, right near the edges like that. Yeah. Maybe they'll come up where you least expect it. And what you could do is kind of just pull maybe you could pull things up a little bit too. Okay. Might be an easy way to create some grass too. Yeah, we'll go over here and create some grass like that. You could also maybe use a flat brush to spread the bristles out and create things that way. You know, that's a pretty neat way to do things, right? Okay. Maybe we'll go over here and things will get a little bit more sporadic. But maybe we'll keep inserting a few greens here and there, just like that. And maybe over here there's a couple of other ones. Yeah. Don't be afraid to get real creative with the way that you apply colors like this, because sometimes you have fun ideas, and maybe sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Maybe you got like little bush things over here. They're kind of shooting all over every which way underneath here. Yeah. That's looking cool. Yeah. That's not bad. Okay. And over here. Okay. Now we got a little bit of that going. What we could do what I think I'd like to do is I want to try something. I want to take just pure yellow, pure nickel hazel yellow. Okay. I want to take just pure nickel hazel yellow, and we're going to try just kind of tossing it down with our sponge here. All right. All right. All right. Well, here goes nothing. Okay. Maybe what we can do is kind of dab away at things as we do this. I think I got enough of that nickel hazel yellow. Huh? Yeah, this color doesn't re-wet quite as easily as some of the others for some reason. Yeah. I can get a lot of paint on there. Maybe I could just dip this right into the well. What do you think? You think that'd be a heck of a way to do things? Yeah, it might be. It'd be interesting if nothing else. Yeah. What I can do is kind of just rub this all over, I think. Because maybe the whole painting needs or maybe this whole ground needs a little bit more golden color on it. Yeah. All right. Yeah, we'll just dab away at some of this because sometimes we overshoot things. Yeah. Okay. Right over there, and over here, over here. Yeah. Very nice. And maybe up in here we'll throw some final touches of that yellow. Just to make it a little bit more interesting. You know what I might do too? I could take my liner brush. Oops. Take a little bit of that phthalo green and a quinacridone magenta like this. Maybe just the lightest touch of that nickel hazel. A little some more green. And right in here, we could pick and choose a few areas where it's going to be a little bit more. Shadow up in here. Maybe right about here. Okay. Yeah, look at that. Now that's getting interesting. Okay. Alright, let's just take a little bit of the bit of the phthalo and the pyro over here. And put that together and maybe dab that down a little bit. That's all it takes. Okay. There we go. Now, we got some final areas in here where we're kind of on the home stretch, just about. And I'm thinking about what I want to do next. And what I want to do, well, of course, what I want to do is just outline this a little bit more, because we got these little areas that are taunting us, make us look foolish. I already do enough of that on my own. I don't need the painting to do it for me. Okay. All right. Okay, let's get some quinacridone magenta here. There's gonna be a bunch of little flowers in here. It's just like this beautiful little flower thing that really strikes me. Really excites you to see, plants like this. Okay. There it goes. And you pick out where they're all going to be on this flower here. Or not on this flower, but this bush. There's just going to be a lot of them. And they really make this whole thing sparkle. It's one of these things where when you add it to the painting, it just really brings it all out. Really makes it exciting. Okay. And maybe you got a couple more down here that are just kind of hanging out. Who knows, maybe there's one right here too. Yeah, maybe there's one right there. How about here? Yeah, there's one right there too. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. While we do that, let's go ahead and go into our mix here of the pyrrole and the phthalo blue. And we'll just bring this down to about right there. There it goes. And now it's all ready for a little bit more foolishness. Here, speaking of foolishness, just get a little bit more right in there. You can just scrub it in. You can dry brush it, whatever you want. Yeah. That's all there is to that. Maybe a little bit over here, a little bit over here. Yeah, that's good. Okay. A little bit over here. Yeah, you can just scrub it in like that. It's a shameful way to paint right there. Just scrub it in. Hey, whatever gets the job done, Don't poo-poo a technique just because it looks silly. Or it sounds silly, like scrub it in. Like that. Yeah. If it works, it works. Hey, I don't think I want to do anything else with that technique. It's a little too much. It's too silly. It's far too silly. Alright, let's go ahead now. I want to decide what I want to do for this section. What I want to do is I want granulating color. I want a very, very gray granulating color. So I'm going to need some of this mix that I've been using over here. I want to add a little bit of the quinacridone magenta, because this is going to be kind of a violet sort of gray. Alright? So I need to add a lot of ultramarine. And then add that quinacridone magenta in there. Okay? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, because you got the colors. You got the colors all handled. Ultramarine, quinacridone magenta. That's really all there is to it. Okay? And now we'll wet this entire thing right here. Okay. That's all there is to that. And there you go. There's that color. Maybe a little more blue. Okay. There it goes. And we'll lift it now, as always. God, we do a lot of lifting, don't we? Yeah, we do. Pretty much because we know how staining colors are going to behave. So they're pretty easy to predict. Alright, so now for this one, these colors right here, we want something a little bit more subdued. So we'll take the Nicolazo yellow and the phthalo blue. You gotta be careful with that phthalo blue. That phthalo blue is strong. It's too strong. I know I've said it. I'll say it again. It's too strong. Ooh, how did I ever wind up with such a color? There it goes. Okay. So here's how we're going to paint this. We're going to paint this whole thing. We're going to lift it. I know. We're going to lift it. And then we're going to add a few details here and there. Just a few. Alright. Now, when I lift like that, notice how I had the whole thing kind of folded up. Alright? That's one way to do it. Now, we're going to take some of that color, that same color, with the Nicolazo yellow and the phthalo blue. Okay? And we're going to mix up a similar green color, but we're going to add a little bit of the quinacridone magenta. And we're going to make it look a little duller. Okay? So look for all the places where it's kind of gotten a little bit duller right here. Yeah. And, you'll look for all those places where maybe it looks like there's a bunch of arrangements going on. There it goes. Remember that the light is coming from the right, okay? So the right is coming, the light is coming from the right. There's going to be a lot more shadowy areas down over here on the left, okay? There it goes. And we can just add a little bit of water and make some of these things a little bit more dynamic. Add some transitions here and there like this. Okay. There it goes. That's nice. That is nice. Alright. So let's go ahead now with the quinacridone magenta and some phthalo green. We just want to add a touch of the phthalo green in there and make it a little bit more violet. And we'll go around some of the edges of these flowers, the inside of them. Make them look a little prettier, because they'll stand out some more. Okay. I'll take some of the phthalo blue over here and go down in here. Touch the edge up. Okay. That's all there is to that. And then we'll take some of the pyrrole and the ultramarine over here. And, well, that's not working out. I'll just take some of this color over here with the quinacridone magenta and the ultramarine and the nickel hazel yellow. Find me a color mix me up a color that's a little bit somewhere in between all of them. It's just very grayish. Okay. And we'll just dry brush that in just like this. And we'll make it a little bigger over on this side. Okay. And if you want to be real fastidious about it like me, you can just take it down a notch. And we've about got ourselves a finished painting here, I think. We don't have to fuss around with this anymore. So let's go ahead and get this one, the old, well, there's a little bit of something right up there, so, ooh, I don't know. Yeah, what I'll do, I'll just go ahead and I'll just mark that off right up there. Dab it down. Take some of the ultramarine and the pyrrole, and then make that stand out right there. Yeah. Go ahead and throw some more of these little lines with the ultramarine and the pyrrole over here, because it looks like a nice color. No sense in not having it stand out a little bit. There. Alright, let's go right over here. Here, let's get some pyrrole on this. Okay. There it goes. Maybe right over here too. Alright, that's probably about enough. We're really hacking away at this now. Oh wait, did I forget that frame right there? Well, I guess I might have. Well, let's take that ultramarine the pyrrole. Really dull it down a little bit. Okay. And we'll take some of the pyrrole. Make it a little bit more than the ultramarine on this. Then we'll just, there it goes. That way we can see the window a little better. Over on this side. That's better. That's better. Alright, let's take our signature color now. This is Pyrrole Red. We don't really use it in paintings, we just sign our name with it. Then I'll just sign my initials down here. Yes. Okay. And that's how you know we got a finished painting. You can sign your name any way you want. You don't have to sign it the way I do. I just like to sign my initials because it's quick, easy. You can put your whole name, your first name, your last name, a totally different name, whatever you want. And with that, I hope you enjoy this one. I hope you get a lot out of it. We used a lot of different techniques on this one. We used some dry brushing, we used the sponge, we used a whole lot of stuff. And I think that if you try this all out, you'll be able to build yourself a pretty good painting. Well, that's about it for right now. It's time for me to head out and do some other things and relax for right now. And until next time, with love from me to you, I will see you soon. Thanks and goodbye.